Well, and right after that earthquake happened, I did reach out to the University of Memphis Center for Earthquake Research and Information, and we had the chance to speak with an associate there who was able to contextualize some of what this means. Tell us a little bit more about this earthquake. So I did an interview with him, and we'll listen to that interview live to answer some of our questions.
So can you tell us just a little bit about what happened this morning?
Well, this morning we had a magnitude 4.1 earthquake near what's the Greenback or Greenville, and it was the first one we've really had that strong since 2003 with the Fort Payne, Alabama earthquake of that year, which was of a similar magnitude. The felt reports are just off the chart in terms of several. One of my fellow scientists texted me, said they had over 20,000 felt reports so far.
Wow. Okay. So how does that, because my understanding, I guess, can you talk about like this region? Do we typically see earthquakes, but they're just not as strong? Is that right?
Yes, the East Tennessee seismic zone is an active seismic zone that pops off small earthquakes of smaller magnitudes all the time, but nobody notices them. We have a seismic network there to monitor events there, and we record them all the time. This one was a feelable earthquake and got everybody's attention.
Okay, and I know the USGS initially reported it was 3.5 magnitude, and then it jumped up to 4.1. Is there any, I guess, could that magnitude raise even higher, or are we fully confident that
No, it's been revised. What happens is you get an automatic solution, then it goes through our analyst who's an expert with the network, and then what happens there is what you get is a revision to the proper magnitude. The earthquake itself happened in the center of our seismic network there, so we got good data on it. It wasn't on the periphery or off on out at a distance where you have trouble trying to analyze it. This was smack dab in the middle of our seismic instrumentation and made it not easier but better to analyze.
Okay, and so when it comes to aftershock, can you maybe explain what that is and if we might see that, if we already have?
I don't know. The thing is, aftershocks are smaller earthquakes of lesser magnitude, of course, that trail off after the main shock of an earthquake. I do not know if we will see such a phenomenon with this earthquake or not. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't.
Okay, is there any sort of timeline where that would happen? Like, does it happen usually an hour after, or is it totally dependent?
It's totally independent of time. It's sort of like why we cannot predict earthquakes. If we could do that, you'd be ready for it and have a forecast and all that. And we're just not there with that at all, period.
Right. Well, and that probably leads into my next question, which was going to be looking at the future. Does what happened today with this earthquake predict anything or say anything about the future of maybe if we'll start seeing more, or we just don't know?
We just don't know. It's well within the parameters of what the East Tennessee seismic zone does in terms of seismic activity. And every few years, you'll get a good feelable earthquake, and this is your good feelable earthquake.
And when it comes to people who might have felt that earthquake, is there any, I guess, advice if someone does feel an earthquake of best practices or what people should just generally know?
Well, the best practice is to treat it sort of like an earthquake drill and treat it like a stronger earthquake. Do what you would do for a stronger event. Get under a piece of furniture, ride it out. You can also act as a citizen scientist and go to the Did You Feel It webpage and put in, they have a questionnaire that you type in, and it will assign your location and the data that you type in on effect. That helps us to fine tune things like hazard mapping and such for seismic activity. Site response is a very important thing to what we do, and getting the site response from people is very helpful.
And so when it comes to your work that you do and other experts in this field, now that this earthquake has happened, kind of what does your work look like? Like, do you spend days kind of studying it, or does this influence what you do at all?
Well, because this is all recorded, we have in some ways the leisure of going back and poring over the data in more slow motion because to us, to you, it's an earthquake. To us, it's data. And because seismic activity illuminates the substructure of the region, think of it as a sort of a one earthquake, not ultrasound, one earthquake at a time. and it gives us data that we can help analyze the area and the region and what it is all about.
Okay, interesting. And then when it comes to damage from earthquakes of this size, I was reading something that said that like windows typically don't break until you get to a 4.4 magnitude. So I know it's been a while since we've had an earthquake of this magnitude here in this area, but do you know about, like, would you expect an earthquake like what we saw this morning to cause a lot of damage or not so much?
Uh, not not damage, but it will rattle everything. And well, I mean, the only thing would be something on a shelf, right on the periphery of the shelf, perilously balanced to the point it gets that little bit of push to push it off the edge. But I know that people were rattled by it. I know it shook people very well. And I know that from the Did You Feel It reports because it's being flooded by it. I know your phone system is pretty well sunk right now due to everybody calling in about it. Oh, one thing I'd like to say is if people are going to report it, don't report it to social media because social media doesn't record the data. If you go to Did You Feel It, it records the data and your experiences for future use by the scientific community. But when you throw it up on social media, Facebook, et cetera, and so forth, it goes off into the void, and we can't use it, unfortunately.
And speaking about that, why is it so important to record this data? Like, why does it matter?
It matters because every bit of data counts to further analyze all of seismic activity. There's no such thing as wasted data. I've run into in the 25 years that I've been at it where you gather data on an event thinking it doesn't matter. Then a few years later, somebody finds a way to analyze that data where it gives you new insights on seismic activity. So data's not wasted. You've just not figured out a way to analyze it yet and make it of good use.
That totally makes sense. I love the way you put that. Well, you answered all of my questions. Now, is there anything that I didn't ask that you think we should talk about, or anything else that you think is important to know? Or do you think we kind of, I'm sure we could talk about it all day, but is there
Oh,
anything?
yes, ma'am, we could. Well, the people, should be aware we have seismic zones. We have ours in West Tennessee, the New Madrid seismic zone, and occasionally we get feelable earthquakes here also. We have a few more than you guys get, but at the same time, your seismic zone is active, and on occasion, you will get a feelable earthquake, and it's just part of nature.
Part of nature, nothing to be alarmed about.
Nothing to be alarmed about. It's normal seismic activity, and every once in a while it will announce itself to remind us that we have seismic zones.
And last question for you. I should have asked this at the very beginning, but for someone who maybe is not familiar with an earthquake and what causes it, can you just kind of break that down in very basic terminology?
In basic terms, what you have is a part of the crust that's under stress with a flaw in it, which is called a fault for basic terms. And that fault reaches a point of stress to the point that it breaks a little bit. The more breakage you get, the higher magnitude you get. And what you had was a small break, small little rupture on the fault, very finite, that caused a magnitude 4 earthquake, or 4.1 to be technical.
And when we look at that scale, I guess what is considered in terms of magnitude, what is considered like a big earthquake? I know it's all kind of relative.
Well, the scale is logarithmic. If you remember in your high school math classes about logarithms, each number is roughly 10 times stronger than the number beneath it. 4 is 10 times stronger than a 3, a 5 is 10 times stronger than a 4. When you're getting above magnitude 4 into the magnitude 5 range is when you get light damage. Magnitude 6 is where you're really getting damage. 7, like the New Madrid earthquakes, you get a lot of damage. But each bump of the scale bumps up your effect and what can cause damage.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. That was really helpful. I mean, like I said, you answered all my questions, and I know this was on incredibly short notice. So I really appreciate it.